How's it going, guys? What a battle. We're going to be talking about F1 today. I got to make this a little bit quick because I have an exam to take later today, so I don't have a lot of time. I got to study. But this was a monumental day in Formula 1 for the championship battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. And I do love situations like this because it is kind of like racing philosophy for me, or like racing, what do you call it? It's like debate, you know, it's like a racing debate. Like, what is racing? What's right? What's wrong? And there's so many different opinions and heated emotions and everything. So I want to take a look at what happened today in the Formula 1 race between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton on lap 1. These two have been fighting the entire season and having great battles. And today it took a step a little bit too far. Shout out to all the Patreon supporters for always supporting the channel. You guys are the absolute best. P-Dog and Aaron Watson, you guys are the new Patreons. P-Dog, I like the P-Dog. I just like that name. That's kind of funny to me, but that's cool. All right, let's get to it. So Formula 1 is a little bit different than NASCAR. I'm not allowed to show any clips or anything. The FIA have full, control over that. But there is, I can use something, and it's going to be pictures. So I would recommend, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go onto Twitter, Instagram, go anywhere, YouTube, does not matter, and find a clip of the Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen incident. Watch it a few times from a few different angles, get your opinion on it, and we're going to break it down here. So I have the pictures right here, which is just a look of what was happening going into Cops, and what happened between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Now, a few things. It's very important to understand F1 racing. This is not like NASCAR or other forms of motorsport where you can make a little bit of contact. In Formula 1, you usually cannot make contact unless you are literally banging wheel to wheel perfectly with, they usually cannot make any contact. So there are certain things you have to know, like who is ahead, whose corner, which driver has the right to enter the corner in a certain way. And you can see here that Lewis and Max are pretty much side by side. Before I say anything else, I do want to say that no matter what your opinion of this is a racing incident. No matter what anyone tells you, it is a racing incident. But the one thing that people don't seem to understand is that in a racing incident, there still is blame. You still have to portion blame to someone, whether it be 100%, whether it be 70%, whether it be 50%. It could be 50-50 for all that matters. But there usually is blame, or someone made something happened in order to cause that wreck. So yes, this is a racing incident, but anyone who is giving that argument in favor of Lewis, saying, it's a racing incident, let them race, I mean, that's not the point. I can be in the highway, right, and I can accidentally rear end you. Something might happen, right? There could be some weird circumstance that something in front of you made you hit the brakes, and I couldn't react in time, and I accidentally rear ended you. It was an incident that happens on the highway. But maybe I could have been a little bit further back, or maybe something else could have happened. There's always some sort of blame. I know that's a pretty bad analogy, but in racing terms, there always is some sort of blame to be apportioned. And in this term, we have to understand the context of the situation as well. These are the two best drivers in Formula 1 at the moment. They're on rival teams. They are going at each other, and there are reputations. Max has always been known as a pretty aggressive driver. Lewis is one of the greatest drivers of all time with the 7 championships. So you would probably argue that Lewis is not as aggressive as Max, and Max, in his, as he starts to get older and older, is maybe calming down a little bit on the aggression, but he is so fast, and he still is willing to, stick his elbows out and get that wheel, get his wheels out there and start, beating and banging a little bit to get the space. So it's very important to know that context. Going into Cops at whatever amount of miles, kilometers an hour, I'm not entirely sure, probably like 300 or something, like nearly 200 miles per hour heading into this corner. They are kind of side by side, but you will see here that as they decide to take the corner, and there are other angles that show this too, but as they decide to take the corner, I want you to look at my mouse here. Lewis Hamilton should be aiming for this apex. You can't see it. Let's see if we could advance a little bit further. He should be aiming for this apex right here. This is where Lewis Hamilton should be aiming for. When you have a car to your outside heading into Cops, if you look where Verstappen is, he is actually taking the right line. He's giving a car with space on the bottom, and Verstappen is, it's a pinch. It definitely is that, but he's giving the right, the right amount of space for Lewis to make the corner. Another important factor here is that Lewis never got ahead. So in Lewis's mind, or I think he said in his post-race interview, that he was completely alongside. This is actually one of the furthest points as to which Lewis was alongside. He maybe got a little bit further ahead, but he was not far ahead. As they enter the corner, you can see that Max drives it in on the outside, as he should, And at this point, it's not Lewis's corner, because you do not stick a nose up at this point. And you saw this throughout the race. Go watch any other battle into cops throughout the race. If you don't have at least half of your car ahead of the car on the outside, or even a nose, you usually have to back off, because you are not going to be able to make the corner. You have to lift a little bit here, especially when you're on 110 kilograms of fuel. The car is heavy and you just started the race. You're not going to be able to go full throttle here. You know you're not going to make the corner. The onboard shows this even more. I can't show the onboard, but if you watch Lewis's onboard, it shows this even more. It shows the fact that when Lewis was entering this corner, he was never making it. He was never ever going to make this corner. When he makes the contact, he is understeering. He should have known already, way before he even got alongside, that he was not going to be ahead of Max Verstappen. As a Formula 1 driver, you should know this. And as he gets alongside, I guess he did try to back off a little bit, but he understeered so dramatically and clattered Verstappen, which sent him spiraling towards the wall and hit it with 51 G's, and now he's in a local hospital. Hopefully he's okay, and hopefully he'll be able to race at Hungary, I think, in 2 weeks time, but he definitely was shaken up. Lewis Hamilton was given a 10-second penalty for causing a collision, so the stewards did think that Lewis caused a collision. Lewis, after the race, said that, he didn't outright say it, but he was giving hints here and there that he did not agree. This is where I have a little bit of a problem, and I just want to point out, guys, I'm completely neutral on this whole battle. I'm not a Max fan. I'm not a Lewis Hamilton fan. I'm a Formula 1 fan. I love watching this racing, and this is a racing incident. I want to point that out. This is 100% a racing incident. That does not mean there is no blame to be portioned here, and actually a lot of the blame here goes on Lewis Hamilton. What do you want Verstappen to do? Verstappen is doing exactly what he should do. He's fighting for the lead. He's fighting against his championship rival, and he does not, I repeat, he does not give Hamilton room. Okay? There is room for Lewis. Even by the time they make contact, Lewis is nowhere near the apex, and this angle doesn't show it perfectly, but if you watch his onboard, he was never even aiming towards the apex. He entered the corner basically into the middle of the track, and when he hit Verstappen at such a velocity that it sent Verstappen completely out of control. It wasn't a little tap. It wasn't a little bit of an understeer. No. Lewis Hamilton was going straight, okay? He was not making that corner, and he absolutely took out Max and sent him into another dimension. Max is now in a parallel universe, because that's how hard he got sent into the tire barriers. And here are some pictures of Max, as he was going. I mean, he is flying towards those barriers. This angle doesn't even prove it a lot, but I mean, Lewis hit him so hard that it damaged the suspension on the rear tire. He clattered him. This is actually a pretty good tweet that shows the 3 incidents. I tweeted this before about the 3 incidents that Lewis has had with Red Bull. He has wrecked Albon twice, and now he has sent Verstappen. Now, I will admit, a few of the Albon incidents, well, one in particular, it's this bottom one right here in Brazil, that, I mean, he did take blame. It was kind of his fault, but you could see here's a main difference. Look at Lewis's right front tire. You see his right front tire? He's on the apex of the corner. Look at Lewis in the top picture. He is never, and he already made contact at this point, I remind you. So you have to imagine Lewis is going straight. He's not aiming for this apex of the corner here. He's already made contact. He is already headed straight. The second one is also probably, that's also, yeah, 100% his fault. That's when he hit Albon again. And yeah, that was, I think, in Catalonia in Spain. And he sent Albon into the gravel trap again. So 3 different instances in the last year that Lewis has had an incident with the Red Bull cars. If I'm Red Bull at this point, I am absolutely 110% fuming. I am headed to the FIA, and it won't happen, but I am, trying to put towards a case of more punishment against Lewis, because at this point, I do have to remind you guys, this incident at the top, this is the fastest part of the track. It arguably is one of the fastest corners in the Formula 1 World Championship. There are not many faster corners in Formula 1 than Copse at Silverstone. So to absolutely yeet Verstappen into the tire barriers is very dangerous. But here's one of the issues I definitely have with this incident, and it is a racing incident. But here's one of the main issues, and it was after the race and even during the race, how Lewis did not take responsibility, and I want to touch on this a little bit more. Lewis Hamilton is a great champion. He's a 7-time champion. He's one of the greatest Formula 1 drivers and one of the best drivers in motorsport of all time. You will never be able to argue that. I love Lewis Hamilton as a person. I love Lewis Hamilton as a driver. I think he's a great person. I think he does so many great things for the world, for society, for things that he believes in. He's very passionate. I love Lewis Hamilton as a person. There is absolutely no ill will towards him, or I mean, I love this guy. If I met this guy in real life, I would be starstruck. I'd be like, whoa, oh my God, that's Lewis Hamilton. And that doesn't happen to me a lot. It happens to me with Jeff Gordon. It'll probably happen to me. It happened to me with Tiger Woods. It happened to me if I ever see LeBron James or something like those types of people. I would be legitimately starstruck. Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lewis Hamilton is part of that category for me, where it's an actual celebrity or athlete that I would be like, whoa. I wouldn't really be able to know what to do with myself. I mention that because this is where I call Lewis Hamilton a coward. A great champion, but a massive coward today. And maybe it's because he hasn't seen the footage yet, but when he goes back and watches it, I hope there is some sort of apology that comes out, because there is no debate, no arguing. Lewis Hamilton is at fault for that crash. The stewards agree. Most F1 fans agree, unless you're very passionate about this battle. And again, you can't really trust fans' passion a lot, because there are a lot of Verstappen fans that are gonna, just talk trash about Lewis forever, and there's a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans that will go will go to war to defend their guy. There have been instances when I remember when I was younger and I was a fan of Jeff Gordon, when Jeff Gordon was completely in the wrong, especially like the Clint Boyer incidents at Phoenix, and I would defend my guy, but Gordon was completely in the wrong. When you look at it objectively instead of subjectively, you will know what I mean. And pretty much all objective viewpoints here is that Lewis is at fault. It's a racing incident 100%. It's not like Lewis was, going out there with a mission to destroy Verstappen and that's how he's going to beat Verstappen in the track. No, that's not how it worked. So I want to point out that it wasn't on purpose. But the thing I have an issue with, a really massive issue with, and why I'm calling him a coward, is because I take a lot of pride when drivers, and I do this myself all the time, whether it's virtual racing or whether it's life in general. If I make a mistake or I say something bad or I just do something wrong towards another person, if I can realize that and see that and I understand, I will humbly apologize and say it's 100% my fault. And that is something that's really important in life to have. It's a very important character trait to have. So when I see a driver like Lewis Hamilton, who is so unbelievably great, not be able to see what he did in the post-race interview, before he mentioned anything about Max, he said, we all know Max is aggressive. He never said, is Max okay? He never said, I hope Max is okay. He never said, I didn't wish for that to happen with Max. He just said, we all know Max is aggressive, and I was alongside him, and I don't agree with the penalty. That's essentially what he said in his post-race interview. That is being a coward and being a jackass. Once he does see that there is responsibility, maybe in his mind it's not 100%. Maybe Max are giving him a little bit more room, even though if Max gives him any more room, Max is not making the corner. I mean, he has to be able to make the corner, so he has to give Lewis the room, which he did, and make the corner yourself, which Max was aiming to do. So Max did nothing wrong in this situation. He just got absolutely yeeted to another dimension. But Lewis did not make the corner. He did not make the apex. He is 100% at fault. That's why the steward gave him the penalty. And for some reason, he is very adamant and very aggressive not to admit that or not to show any kind of kindness or humility amongst that. And that's what makes me angry. That's why I'm so passionate about this. Because he is a fantastic champion, and I think he should be able to hold himself to higher standards. I think people around him should probably pull him aside and be like, hey man, you should maybe think about Max's safety. Like, is he okay? We understand he's a competitor. We understand he's a rival. We understand that you guys are going at it for a championship. But the dude got sent to the hospital because of what you did. No matter whether even if you don't think it's your fault, you catapulted him off the left front of your car and sent him into the tire barriers, and you sent him to the hospital. So even if you thought, 100%. that you are at fault, maybe show a little bit of kindness and say, I hope Max is okay. I hope Max is doing well. But to not say that after your in your post-race interview, instead, you mentioned that Max is a very aggressive driver? Really? That's what you mentioned? Look what you just did! Look what you did to Albon previously! You wrecked 3 Red Bull cars the same way! What are you doing? He is a fantastic champion. And to not be able to admit to your own mistakes is incredibly frustrating to me. And it makes me really just not like the guy. And I love Lewis. But it's one of those things, like if your best friend was doing something really stupid, you'd kind of just pull him to the side and be like, hey man, you know, you got, like, stop. And that's what this was. So what happens now? Well, now I think it gets even uglier from here. Honestly, I do think it happens because Lewis has crossed the line. We've seen this kind of boiling, not to Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton levels. That was just weird. And with the teammate battle and everything, they legitimately hated each other. And Mercedes couldn't deal with that another year afterwards. So that's why Nico retired. But you can see that they were battling, and Lewis, you know, in a very odd way, was getting his ass kicked. He lost he hasn't won in 5 races until today. Max was winning poles, Max was dominating races, and Lewis, for the first time since 2014, did not have the fastest car. It seemed like Red Bull and Max had the fastest car, and so it was a predicament that Lewis has not been in. He's chasing that record-breaking 8th championship, so he's under pressure. There's a lot of pressure under Lewis, but he crossed the line. Now what happens is, whether it be Red Bull, whether it be Max, whatever happens, there will be words being traded in press conferences and in the media. There'll probably be some harsh words, some violent words being traded. And that respect level that Max and Lewis always had amongst each other is probably not going to be the same. You think Max was aggressive before? Watch Max with Lewis now. And here's the most important factor. Whatever Max does, if Max Verstappen yeets Hamilton into a corner, and you don't want to do that in Formula 1 because you can damage your car, but let's just say Verstappen runs Hamilton off the road, or Verstappen is a very dirty driver towards Lewis Hamilton in the future, there is absolutely nothing anyone can say to defend Lewis Hamilton, because he has now asked for all this to come upon him. Which is why in racing, and this is beautiful, it's not always about the sprint. It's about the marathon. It's a long season, and an incident in one race can come back to haunt you in many other races. And so what I think will happen from now on is Lewis is going to be on guard and on duty to make sure that he has to defend. And if anything happens to him, whether Verstappen runs him off the track and cuts a tire and Lewis starts getting mad over the radio, there's nothing he can say. Even if he calls Max a jackass, it doesn't hold any weight because of what Lewis has done today. Max has been given full free reign. Red Bull have given full free reign to race Lewis how they choose to now. Which, for as the objective fan, is going to be very dramatic. Make sure you watch Drive to Survive next season on Netflix, because, oh Lord, I think what we're going to see in the rest of the season, it's going to be very interesting in the championship battle. The championship battle is on. Lewis Hamilton has gained another 25 points. He's only 8 points behind Verstappen. But now it's a rivalry. Now, whatever happens, Lewis cannot complain. And Max, with all that aggression and all the Dutch fans behind him, he's coming. And he's coming to really, I mean, I don't want an angry Max Verstappen coming at me, because he might not be the most physically opposing guy, but an angry Max Verstappen, that's a bad man. In the end, this was a fantastic battle, a fantastic kind of it's like a case brief. This is like when you're in like law school and you have multiple cases. This is like the Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen, case. 2021 Silverstone. Very interesting racing, very interesting complications, very interesting racing, racing ethics, racing morals, a ton of different opinions most likely. And so I let mine out. And I think Lewis should be prepared, because now, it's the gloves are off now. The gloves are genuinely off, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I have to go study for my exam. I will see you guys later. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your day. I will have the post-race review up for NASCAR later. But until then, at 2:30, I have an exam, so I got to go take that. I'll see you guys later. Take care of yourselves. Peace out.